It's been a wild week for game reviews. Dragon's Dogma 2, one of the most anticipated RPGs of the year, launched on Friday after fans had waited more than 10 years for a follow-up to the cult classic. And when the review embargo dropped on Thursday, it seemed like this was going to be one of those situations where something that fans had waited so long for might actually live up to expectations. 8 out of 10 from IGN, 9 out of 10 from GameSpot and Game Informer, 5 out of 5 from Eurogamer. Traditional gaming outlets that have been given early copies of the game for review were praising it for deep mechanics, the return of the pawn system, and a huge interactive open world that really delivers on dynamic gameplay. Reviews mentioned performance issues here and there, but by and large it seemed like exactly the game that fans were wanting. But looking at the Steam reviews the following day, you'd see quite a different story. For most of launch day, the game was sitting at mostly negative on Steam, and as I'm recording this, it's improved to a mixed rating, but it still has more than 30,000 reviews, many of which are calling out the game for being poorly optimized, being unable to start a new run of the game, and microtransactions that were added to the game after it had gone live. Now that's something reviewers have been told ahead of time in their review guides, but that wasn't in their version of the game, and many hadn't really made an effort to call them out in any kind of significant way to let people know they were happening. The microtransactions in Dragon's Dogma 2 aren't as bad as Steam reviews might have you think. Anything you can buy, you can earn in the game by simply playing the game. A lot of the outrage is coming from their inclusion in a single-player game to begin with. If you can earn something so easily in the game, then why would you add the option for players to buy it to begin with? The answer is obviously because people will buy it, and if you don't want to, you simply don't have to. But even so, coming off of a game like Baldur's Gate 3, which has no DLC, no microtransactions, and they delivered on a fantastic RPG experience that's sweeping award shows left and right, the perceived nickel and diming from Dragon's Dogma 2 left a bad taste in people's mouths. As for performance, the dev shared a statement on the Steam page sharing the game can be power hungry on the CPU side, especially when multiple characters are on the screen. In a time where PC specs are all over the place, from entry-level Walmart builds to high-end custom PCs, hardcore hardware requirements are bound to leave some people in the community with lackluster performance. In the case of not being able to start a new save, that's just an oversight on the part of the developers. There's no getting around that one. Every time a big game drops, I typically make a quick review roundup video, going through the ratings from the biggest outlets that are out there, and Dragon's Dogma 2 was on the list. After the backlash during launch from players, my comment section was packed with people complaining that I ignored the Steam reviews from players and only focused on critic perspectives. These conversations really got me thinking. Who do you trust these days for fair opinions and impressions of a game? I grew up trusting the opinions of traditional gaming media outlets, because that's all I had. When I was playing on my PlayStation 2 and PSP as a kid, getting the latest Game Informer in the mail, flipping through the newest Game Pro at the store while I waited on my mom, or checking out the weekly episodes of X-Play on G4 were how I picked what games I'd beg my parents for when my birthday or Christmas rolled around. I didn't have a phone, certainly didn't have a laptop, and scrolling through social media to see hot takes from people playing was out of the question. That trust in those gaming outlets is something I've taken with me into my adulthood, for better or for worse. Reviews from outlets can definitely have their potential biases. A PlayStation outlet could score PlayStation games higher, and vice versa for Xbox-focused outlets. Obviously, the biggest risk when trusting critic reviews is that the game's retail version could paint a drastically different story when millions of players are online. Microtransactions may be worse than they looked in the guides, servers for online games could be overwhelmed on launch day, specific platforms could have lackluster performance compared to others. Anything is possible. Now people that are 17 or 18 years old picking up Dragon's Dogma 2 have grown up informing their buying decisions with an entirely different set of tools. YouTube influencers, podcasters, social media reactions, and player ratings on every storefront are all giving players insight on what to expect when they're thinking about picking up the latest game to hit store shelves. But did these reviews really tell you a more complete story than the critic reviews do? Every review shared online, whether it's coming from a reviewer, an influencer, or an average player with a Steam account, is forming that opinion around a unique gameplay experience, a perception of that experience, and potential biases that shaped their reaction to that experience. In the case of Dragon's Dogma 2, glancing at the Steam reviews and seeing a mostly negative might immediately give people the impression that it's a bad game. Instead, that's mostly a reflection of people review bombing the game in protest of microtransactions, some users complaining about performance issues and a handful of missing features, and then others that are bandwagoning to get in on that conversation. Now, these criticisms and negative reviews are totally valid, but when people with less than an hour in the game are posting a negative review to protest microtransactions in AAA games, does that really give anyone a truthful perspective on how good the game itself really is? I don't think so. So where do people turn to get the best perspective on the latest games and controversies that come with them? Honestly, there is no best perspective or completely unbiased take on any game. With the gaming media landscape that we have today, spanning journalists, critics, influencers, players, and random people online, everybody's got a voice in the conversation. and your best bet is to find somebody in that pool of players that you tend to see eye to eye with. For instance, if you're someone who tends to like action games and first-person shooters, but you're willing to try different things and are open to the idea that any game could be good, then I might be your guy. But if you're looking for someone sharing their perspective on the latest 100+ hour RPG and comparing that to other RPGs that came out in the last 5 years, you've got the wrong guy. The industry itself has evolved from a place where critics alone are setting the tone for a game's perception at release to a more segmented collection of individual communities that acts more like a big high school lunchroom with a different group at every table. If you align yourself with the anti-microtransaction squad, they've got a table. RPG fans, they've got a table. Interactive card game fans, they've got a table. When you find your table and you start listening to the lunchtime conversation, you'll probably find the people you're chatting with have more customized conversations geared towards you and reliable recommendations as compared to the general gaming audience sharing hot takes on Twitter. But that's just my 2 cents on the state of the review landscape in 2024. And as always, I'd love to know what you think down below. What do you think of the state of reviews? Do they still even matter in 2024? And how do you find reliable opinions on the latest and greatest games hitting store shelves? I'd love to hear your thoughts. But hey, if you're new to the channel and you like what you see or what you hear, consider hitting that subscribe button down below for videos like this every week and gaming news shorts throughout the week to keep you in the loop. And I'll catch you on the next one.